Okay. Let me see.
Courtroom 2 to Michael Jordan.
Yes.
Hey, Jordan, how you doing? This is Norris.
Good.
Quick question. Kedrick West, he wasn't placed on the calendar. I'm just trying to figure out why.
That one is still up for grabs. So
And
it
he
was
had
a FTA case.
private attorney.
I'm trying to see what the sources I was planning on doing with it, but it was a FTA from magistrate court.
Okay. And he has his private attorney here.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna put him on first when the judge comes on.
Okay.
Thank you. He's not playing basketball?
No.
Seriously? No moves?
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Law, and we're going to commence with our state expedited accusation calendar. This is a list of misdemeanor criminal cases in which individuals, upon being booked at the Fulton County Jail, their cases have already been accused. Hence, it would be their initial appearance before a state court judicial officer. If you are a defendant charged with one or more misdemeanor offenses, please remember that you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say about the facts of your case, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to represent you from either the public defender's office or from our conflict defense list. Who's my litigation manager? Is that Mr. Jordan? Are you?
Yes, I am today.
All right, sir. Reset date is February 16th for SAP?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, who am I beginning with? Courtroom 2, who do we have?
Hey, good afternoon, Judge Law. This is Officer Norris. Come on, fellas. Come on. I have Mr. Kedrick West. He was on our pull sheet, but he wasn't placed on the calendar. He has his private attorney here, Mr.
Cohen, Your Honor. Nice to see you.
Mr. Cohen, good afternoon, sir.
I'm sorry I'm hiding behind this, but I think it's
That's-
necessary.
Perfectly fine. Do we have an accusation number or a case number?
Your Honor, this is crazy, and I've been practicing, as you know, more than a few thousand years. He was in the city of South Fulton. And he actually, with his wife, who was in my office this morning, went and paid the fine several times. And they own a tattoo parlor. And for whatever reason, they've got him on an FTA, but I will state in my place that I will take him as soon as I know when
All right.
he is. If the court would be considered an OR, SOB. he's
Give
not
me a jailing booking number.
The booking number is 230-1830. He has a FTA warrant 22 MC 00186 from Magistrate Court.
Oh, yeah. All right, is this Kedrick West?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. And this case has never been accused, operating without a valid license. And let me see, where did he fail to appear?
In the city of South Fulton, but he actually paid the fine. He and his wife paid the fines. They own a tattoo parlor. And this is nothing more and nothing less than a bit of confusion. And I've been doing this a million years. I can't understand why they arrested him, but I promised the court we will on Monday morning find out when he has to be there, and he'll be there.
Okay, I don't know where to send him. That's the problem, Mr. Cohen. You are in state court right now with accused cases. So let me see, do I have anyone from the Solicitor General's office who can give me some light about the progress of this case?
Miss Falk was working on that yesterday with Mr. Jordan, so I don't know what the solution came for his case.
All right, let me see what's going on here. This was a magistrate FTA warrant issued by Judge Frazier for failure to appear in court on September 8th, 2022. But what kind of calendar is beyond me?
That's what if the court would set an OR or ROR.
I'd love to set an OR, sir, but the only question is jurisdiction and where do I send him after that? So 2 questions I have to have answered before I can move on from this case. I know you are seeing me today because it's a Saturday, and probably this is the only court that is, I think we had a felony first appearance, but that's over and done with.
Actually, I have court in Cobb County helping high school kids at 3 with mock trial.
Hey, I got one tomorrow also, so you and I in the same boat, okay? You have no sympathy from me on that one.
I'm not asking for sympathy, I'm asking.
All right, okay. All right, Miss Goodry, does the state have any plans to accuse this case?
Your Honor, that would have to, Miss Wolf is on, ASG Wolf, she is a supervisor today.
Excellent. Miss Wolf?
Good morning, Judge.
Good afternoon. Yes, Miss Wolf. Little problem. I need to get to my newly accused cases. You have this particular case, Kedrick West, who's on an FTA from a magistrate judge because the case has not been accused yet. What's the issue?
I am not quite sure what the particular issue is with as to why it's not accused. I'll have to speak with Ms. Falk on it, but I'll also look at it while you're proceeding with the other cases. I'll take a quick look at it and try to get in contact with Attorney Falk.
Mr. Cohen, I'm very inclined to give you a signature bond on this case. I just need to know where I'd send him to next.
I understand.
I cannot send him back to magistrate court because I have no inkling about their calendars. I'm not a magistrate. I'm not a magistrate judge anymore. So I just need the state to let me know if they plan to accuse the case, and then I can set it down for an OR or a signature bond and give you a court date. So if you just be patient with me, as soon as Miss Wolf gets me some information, I'll be able to proceed with your case.
Certainly, Your Honor. I appreciate it. Ms. Wolf, I'm supposed to be in Cobb at 3. Help. It's 34 minutes from here with no traffic.
Okay, I'm looking at it now.
All right.
You want to call? I can't call you. My phone's in the car.
All right, Mr. Cohen, I think it's best if you sit in the gallery now until we address your case, all right? And Mr. West can be seated with the others in the benches back there.
Thank
And,
you, Your Honor.
all right, and our next case, please.
Let me see. Over there. Mr. Cohen, you can sit here. Thank you. Next, Your Honor, we're gonna have position number 5. Ms. Jackson, position number 5.
Thank you. This is Rahma Jackson, accused of simple battery, case number 23 CR 007, excuse me, 000-723J. This is a newly accused case, and Ms. Jackson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Darrell Coleman. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. This is an incident from February 1st of 2023. And pre-trial, do we have any recommendation?
No prior arrest on this individual, Judge.
All right, thank you. Ms. Goodry, what's your recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. I do understand that this is the defendant's first arrest. She's charged with simple battery for an incident that occurred on the 1st, as you stated. The location was 3190 Spanish Trail at apartment 16 East. Officers arrived at that area due to a fight call. They were attempting to speak with the defendant, well, with the victim. His name is Mamadi, that's Mamadi Cesay, Cesay. He is on Zoom, Your Honor. And as they were trying to talk to him, the defendant came outside asking for medical attention as her nose was bleeding. But she stated to the officers that she hit the victim first, and then he in turn hit her and her nose started bleeding due to her stating that she was arrested.
Do you have a recommendation for bond?
Yes, Your Honor. I recommend a $2,000 signature bond.
Okay,
With
Any
no
objection?
further contact and a stay away.
understood. Mr. Coleman, what's your opinion on contact?
Your Honor, we would have no problem with no further contact. My client states to me that she does not live with the alleged victim in this case. We obviously would have no objection to a signature bond.
All right. Ms. Jackson, your bond is going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial services. You will report to pretrial once a month. You don't have to pay for your bond today, but as long as you report to pretrial and you comply with my conditions, you won't have to be rearrested again on any bond violation. The conditions are no further contact with Mr. Mamadi Cesay, and you have to stay away from 3190 Spanish Trail, the entire apartment complex, not just apartment 16, but the entire apartment complex at East Point in Fulton County, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons and no firearms. Within 30 days of being released, you must update the court with your current address, phone number, and email. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And we will send you notice of your next court date. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, can we put courtroom 1, Mr. Coleman, Ms. McLeod, and the Spanish interpreter in a breakout?
All right.
And then I'll just tackle all of Mr. Feinling's cases while they're
All
doing
right.
the breakout.
Mr. Jordan, if you place courtroom 1, Mr. Coleman and our Spanish interpreter,
And also Ms. McLeod.
and Ms. McLeod too. Okay. All right. Whoever needs to be in the breakout, please send a chat to Mr. Michael Jordan, and he will make sure you're placed in the breakout. Okay. Ms. McLeod, does she have to be in a separate breakout? Or in the same
We're in
one?
the same breakout and
All right.
we'll just take turns.
All right. Thank you. Let me see. Courtroom 2, while we are waiting on that. And Ms. Wolf, just let me know as soon as you can about Mr. Cohen's case. I definitely want him to get to that mock trial competition. This is a voluntary effort, and I certainly don't want him to miss it.
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Courtroom 2, who do we have, please?
Next, we have position number 6, Ms. Lampkin.
All right. Katara Kat Lampkin, case number 23 CR 000-728C. Ms. Lampkin, you've been arrested on a traffic incident from February 3rd, 2023. And the charges that follow are willful obstruction of an officer, misdemeanor, attempting to misrepresent an automobile tag, failure to obey a stop sign, driving with an expired or no license, plate or decal, and having an obscured or missing license plate. Your attorney is Mr. Finling, and you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Ms. Bostic, any traffic infractions or convictions?
No prior arrest, Judge.
All right, thank
Recommended
you.
for pretrial services.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
No prior arrest recommended for pretrial.
Okay. Ms. Harmon, any objection to a pretrial bond?
Yes, Judge, we have an objection. We would like to have surety bonds on this case. I know she
Recently,
has limited history, but our recommendation on the willful obstruction is a $1,000 surety bond. And for the remaining driving offenses, $500 each on those incidents, Judge. And the reason for that is because she did during the course of this traffic stop, she did fail to stop at a stop sign at the incident location of Princeton Lakes Way, Southwest and Raybon Parkway. When the officer did make contact with her, she didn't even have a tag on her car. She asked for her license and she told him to go get a supervisor. As you know, she eventually gave the license to a supervising officer. And she did provide him with documents that allowed her to run the officers to run the vehicle through their system. And they learned that the tag was expired. And she was asked to exit the vehicle 3 times before she actually did exit, Judge. So she does, I understand that this is a driving offense primarily, Judge, but she did absolutely obstruct the officers from doing their job. So that's why we're recommending the surety bonds on the willful obstruction and the surety bonds on the driving offenses.
all right. Ms. Lampkin, Ms. Harmon, I did read the warrant as well, and I agree with you. Non-compliance and arrogance sometimes do warrant a surety bond. But today I'm going to grant a signature bond, but Ms. Lampkin will have to do certain conditions.
Okay.
Failure to comply with these conditions will result in her bond being revoked and being arrested again on bond violation. On the willful obstruction of an officer, the bond is $2,500 and the remaining charges are $500 each. Total bond is going to be set at $4,500. It's a signature bond through pretrial services. She will report to pretrial once a month. Anytime she drives a vehicle, she must have a valid driver's license, adequate automobile insurance, and a proper registration as well as tag and so forth. And the license plate must be clearly displayed. There cannot be anything hindering the display of the license plate. And her next court date will be sent to her current address. Ms. Lampkin, you have 30 days from the release date to update the court with your current address, phone number, and email. You must come back to the clerk's office at 160 Prior Street and provide us with your current address in writing. We'll see you in court. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next, Your Honor, we have position number 7, Mr. Lane Ford, position number 7.
Ms. Wolf, any updates?
Yes, Judge, I do have an inquiry to make. Has Mr. West obtained a valid driver's license?
I don't know. Mr. Cohen, can you enlighten us on that?
Your Honor, I didn't real, I'll find out. You haven't found one. He advises me, Your Honor, he does.
All right,
We'll
Ms.
go
Wolf.
ahead and decline to accuse it, Judge.
All right, so you'll submit you'll either have to submit an NOD or a notice of intent to not prosecute, and the case is dismissed. So, Mr. Cohen, your client can be released as soon as I see the dismissal order or the notice of intent to not prosecute.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate it, everybody, and I will state my claim. I will contact the city of South Fulton. We'll figure this out and make it happen.
All right, Mr. Cohen, you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
I
Miss-
appreciate it, everybody.
Take care. Ms. Wolf, if you could submit the proposed order to Mr. Michael Jordan, please, I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, Judge.
Position 7, we have Hazel Langford, 23 CR 000724D. Ms. Langford was cited for public drunkenness from February 3rd, 2023. violation of certain acts, rules, or certain violation of certain rules with regards to acts at a bus, rail, or station, misdemeanor obstruction of an officer, and criminal trespass. Ms. Hazel Langford, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Finling. Any priors, Ms. Bostic?
All of her arrests are out of California. Most of them are from juvenile hall. Her last arrest was battery on spouse out of California.
As an adult, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And let me see, Ms. Harmon, what's your bond recommendation for Ms. Langford?
For Ms. Langford, the bond for the criminal trespass has already been set at a $1,000 surety bond. $1,000 surety bond for the certain acts has already been set, and I will continue to recommend that same amount to the court. For the willful obstruction, I'll recommend a $500 surety bond, and for the public drunkenness, a $500 surety bond for a total bond of $3,000 surety. Stay away from the incident location, which is 30 Alabama Street, the 5 Points MARTA station, and no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. The arrests are out of California. What's concerning for the state is that she might be a flight risk because the battery against a spouse, be it as it was dismissed, Judge, it was a recent arrest in 2020 that indicates to me that she may have some current ties to California. This is her first arrest in the state of Georgia. We're also concerned that she decided to go into a deserted part of the train that told her to clearly stay away. Her conduct by jumping in the tracks was a safety risk to herself and other citizens. And when she was asked to desert that area and being taken into custody, she did try to flee when she was trying to be taken into custody. So we think surety bonds are appropriate given the conduct that is alleged in this case.
All right. Let me just correct the record. It was my bad. Yes, Mr. Langford is a sir, it's a male.
Okay, I apologize too.
No, I apologize. I saw it as Hazel, and it's actually Hazael. Is that correct? Hazael?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I do apologize, sir. And Mr. Finling, any thoughts?
Yes, Judge, and good afternoon. Hope you've been well.
Great.
Mr. Langford is 28 years old. He does have community ties, Judge. He does have family that lives here. So I know previously he has not lived in Atlanta, but Atlanta is now where he calls home. And he does reside with his dad and his uncle. He's a high school graduate and attended some college, and he has been employed at the CNN headquarters as a chef, Judge. I am going to ask for a signature bond on Mr. Langford's behalf. But if not inclined, Your Honor, then I would ask for a $1,000 surety bond altogether of these charges.
And is there a current suspension from MARTA as a result of this incident?
Judge, I did not see one noted in the documentation I reviewed.
Understood. Thank you. On the on all the charges, it's going to be $1,000, and it's going to be a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial services. Mr. Langford can sign up for his bond, but he must report to pretrial once a month. He has to abstain, that is, not consume any alcohol or illegal drugs and not possess any weapons or firearms. He may continue to use MARTA as long as there's no active suspension against him. But if he does use the MARTA train or the buses, he's not permitted to embark or disembark at the 5 Point station. So considering it's the intersection of our major hub, he'll need to figure out how to get off at the other stations or get onto from other stations and not either embark or disembark at 5 Points MARTA station at 50 Alabama Street. Within 30 days, I'm assuming Somerton Place is his correct address?
Yes, that's correct, Judge. Yeah, 2136 Somerset. That's correct.
All right. We'll send him notice for his next court date. All right, welcome to Georgia. Next case, please.
Next, we have position number 9, Mr. Stephen Perkins. Position number 9.
Mr. Stephen Perkins is accused of misdemeanor obstruction of an officer. We're running a special on that offense today. Misdemeanor obstruction of an officer, no automobile insurance, driving with an expired license plate or decal, driving while license suspended or revoked, acquiring a license plate for purposes of concealment of the motor vehicle ID and failure to have license on person. This stems from a January 4th, 2023 incident. And Mr. Perkins, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Findling. Ms. Bostic, any traffic violations or convictions or open traffic cases?
Judge, I don't have Mr. Perkins' complete history. He was in felony court yesterday, I believe, and got a $6,000 bond on criminal damage to property, criminal trespass, and loitering and prowling. He has 30 total cycles.
Thank you. Ms. Harmon?
Yes, Judge, in reviewing his criminal history, he had a DUI in 2013. He was guilty. He was issued a limited license on that, and he had limited license violations in 2015, is what I reviewed from his driving record. Pretrial is correct. I did find 30 cycles. Judge, I'm going to recommend in this case a $500 surety bond on each of these driving offenses. And I think that would lead us to a $3,000 total bond, if my math is correct.
That's
and
correct.
No alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and no driving, as I don't believe he has a valid license. When officers were patrolling the area and they ran the tag, it came back expired as no insurance since 2001. When he was asked about his license, he indicated he didn't have one. And when they went to run the license, the defendant fled on foot. From what I could tell, Judge, it doesn't look like he's had registration since 2001. And he's had at least some level of suspension on his license or limited driving since 2015, which looks like he violated that in 2015. So I think there is some concern, along with the open criminal trespass, loiter prowl, criminal damage in the first degree, and that's 23 CP 215930. That with the 30 cycles, I do think surety bonds are appropriate in this case, even though these are driving offenses. Nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Perkins is 40 years old, Judge. And while I do recognize his recent charges, obviously he is presumed innocent in those cases, Judge. He is from Atlanta originally, and he does have lots of family here, so he does have community ties. He is not currently employed and is just on disability, and that's how he kind of pays his bills. But Judge, I would ask for a $1,700.50 surety bond as $500 for the willful obstruction, and $350 for the rest of the charges, Judge.
All right, thank you. On the no automobile insurance and driving while license suspended or revoked, that's going to be $1,000 each.
Sorry, Judge, could you say which two those were again?
Count 2, no insurance is 1,000.
Okay.
Count 4, driving while license suspended or revoked is 1,000. That's going to be a surety bond. The remaining charges are going to be $500 each. And that's going to be a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial. His total bond is a $6,000 split bond. Am I correct? No, that's $4,000. Sorry, $4,000 split bond. Once he pays on the $2,000 portion, he can be released on through pretrial on the remaining charges. He will report to pretrial once a month, and he is not allowed to operate any motor vehicle until he has a valid current driver's license, adequate automobile insurance, and proper registration. No illegal drugs and no alcohol.
Can you put that one per judge?
I'm sorry?
Per judge on that one.
All right. And oh, I see. Put per judge on the pretrial matter because he has an open felony case. Understood. The other thing I want to add is that his next court date is going to be February 16th, 2023. If he does make bond, he needs to make sure we have his current address so that we can send him his next court date. Thank you, Mr. Finley.
Thank you, Judge.
Next, Your Honor, can we go to the Spanish interpreter cases?
Is Ms. McLeod ready? Or whoever's got this.
Yes, they're
We're ready. I'm ready, Your Honor.
All right.
We're gonna go to position number 2, Mr. Flores Carrillo.
All right. Thank you. Okay. May I ask our interpreter please appear also?
Yes, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm right here. I
No
was looking
problem.
for the button, I apologize.
No problem. Good to see you.
Good.
All right, Ms. Lucia, do you solemnly swear and affirm that the information you translate from English to Spanish and vice versa will be a true and accurate translation with no changes or embellishments?
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are addressing position number 2, case number 23 CR 000-720Y.
Estamos en el caso, en la posición número 2, el caso es 23 CR 000-720Y.
This is State versus Marco Antonio Flores Carrillo.
Es el caso del Estado en contra del señor Marco Antonio Flores Carrillo.
Accused of battery, domestic violence from February 3rd, 2023 in Fulton County.
Y las acusaciones vienen del 3 de febrero del 2023 y son el cargo de violencia y familia violencia es la primera ofensa.
This case has been formally accused, and Mr. Flores, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say, your statements can and will be used against you.
Este caso ha sido acusado formalmente y señor Flores, usted tiene el derecho de permanecer en silencio y cualquier cosa que usted diga puede y será usada en contra suya.
You have a right to an attorney, and representing you is Miss Maureen McLeod.
No, actually, that would be me.
Mr. Coleman.
I'm sorry. Your attorney will be Daryl Coleman.
Usted tiene derecho a un abogado, a una defensa y su abogado el día de hoy va a ser el señor Daryl Coleman.
Ms. Bostic, any priors on Mr. Flores?
No prior arrest, Judge.
Y la juez preguntó si es que había algún arresto previo y no tiene ningún arresto previo, es la primera vez.
The prosecutor is now going to give their bond recommendation and how Mr. Flores may be released pending, just how he may be released. Go ahead, Ms. Lucia.
Ahora la fiscalía va a decir qué es lo que quieren para que pueda salir, cómo va a salir bajo fianza.
All right, Ms. Goodwin.
Yes, Your Honor. I do want to make the court aware that this is a cross-defendant case with position number 8.
All right, and that's represented by Ms. McLeod, correct?
I
Yes,
believe
Your Honor.
so.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, please translate.
Esta es una posición, este es un caso que tiene un acusado también, que está en la posición número 8, quien está siendo representado por la señora Maureen McLeod.
All right, and Ms. Goodry, what's your bond recommendation for Mr. Flores?
Yes, Your Honor. The recommendation will be the same for both, but in regards to Mr. Flores, it's a $2,000 surety bond, no further contact with Louise Mendoza
Jimenez?
1 day anger awareness, alcohol drug evaluation and no alcohol, drugs, or weapons due to the defendants being intoxicated at the time of the incident. They are brother-in-laws. They were fighting each other. I do not know whose home that is, so I'm not giving a stay away. But I do believe they don't need contact with each other right now, given that it just happened yesterday. And the extent of the injuries were very serious. Luis suffered cuts to his face and a swollen lip, and Marco sustained visible cuts to his face, and he had blood coming from his mouth. So they were out to get each other. So I would say no further contact with the surety.
All right, Mr. Coleman, they were out to get each other?
Your Honor,
I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm so sorry.
No
Yes,
problem.
Ms. Lucia, go ahead.
Y lo que la fiscalía está sugiriendo y está pidiendo a la juez que sea puesto es una fianza de $2,000 asegurada, o sea, eso quiere decir pagando, que no haya contacto próximo entre las dos partes, entre usted y su cuñado, una clase de un día contra la violencia, monitoreo de uso de drogas y alcohol porque estaban borrachos cuando esto sucedió. Esto sucedió apenas el día de ayer y tenían los dos fuertes golpes y cortes en su piel. El señor Luis tenía cortes en su cara, en sus labios. También el otro señor tenía también otro caso, perdón. Sí, el señor Luis, el señor Marcos tenía también cortes y lazaduras. Entonces, piensan que lo que les piden es que no tengan más comunicación ni contacto entre ustedes.
By the way, is Maria Flores Carrillo present on the Zoom?
La señora María Flores Carrillo está presente en esta cita por Zoom, en esta audiencia por Zoom. Si es que está presente, señora, prenda su cámara.
All right, no. Mr. Coleman?
Your Honor, I would be requesting sanction bound on Mr. Flores Carrillo's behalf based on his lack of criminal history.
Y lo que su abogado está pidiendo para usted es el que le dejen salir bajo fianza con un bono con su propia firma sin dinero, como ya que es su primera ofensa. Esto para el señor Flores Carrillo.
I'm sorry, Mr. Coleman, is your client on the lease?
I believe that the home is that of his sister and Mr. Jimenez, his brother-in-law.
Okay.
Y la casa en la que vive, la juez preguntó si es que usted estaba en el contrato y el abogado indica que la casa donde usted vive es de la hermana, de su hermana y su cuñado.
We would be requesting no further violent contact. Mr. Carrillo expressed to me that he does not have a problem having contact with Mr. Jimenez. I don't know how Mr. Jimenez feels about that.
El señor Carrillo expresa que él sí quiere tener contacto con el señor Jiménez y que no tiene problema en volver a vivir juntos.
All right.
He's lived here in Atlanta for the last 8 months. He works as a day laborer, so he has no money to post for bond.
Okay.
Él ha estado aquí en Atlanta por los últimos 8 meses, trabaja como un trabajador por días y entonces no tiene el dinero para pagar una fianza.
And I'm assuming he moved from another state or another country?
Correct.
All right. Bond is going to be set at $1,500. It's going to be a surety bond.
Not a signature bond?
No, sir. Residency is going to be a problem for monitoring with pretrial.
Maybe through the jail?
Do we have a good address? He's not going back to the apartment complex.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the only address that he has. I asked him if there was someone else that he could stay with. Unfortunately, not.
All right.
Your Honor, may I say something?
Sure.
I have spoken with my client and he explains to me that it was a total misunderstanding and they had both been drinking. He tells me that sort of thing does not happen. He does want his brother-in-law to come back to the house. They're actually quite a close family based on what he tells me, Your Honor. And he does want his brother-in-law to come back to the household. And
the other occupant, understood. The other occupant of the of this particular home stated to the officer that the individuals, the 2 cross defendants, have been drinking alcoholic beverages all night, got into a verbal argument and started to fight each other. So I'm not sure if I want either one of them in that apartment. So I'm taking out the person who has no ties to the apartment.
Well, Your Honor, it's her brother. This particular defendant, represented by Mr. Coleman, is the lady of the house's brother.
Okay.
And again, he did express to me the same sentiment that he this was a one-time thing, that this is not something that typically happens between the 2 of them, and that he would like to have contact with his sister.
And also, Your Honor, it's going to be a huge hardship on both of them and on the lady of the house herself, because based on what my client tells me his income is, they all contribute to paying for this house to go along. My client is only 22. He's married. He has a 6-year-old.
Is he married to Maria?
Yes, he is, Your Honor.
All right. Let me just find out one thing. Miss Bostic, any priors on position? I'm sorry, Miss Lucia. You can translate from this point onwards. Are there any priors on position 8, Luis Mendoza Jimenez?
Y existen algunos Your Honor, would you like me to summarize a little bit of the conversation for the witnesses?
Yeah, but first summarize about, state about the prior history.
Okay. No existe ningún historial previo para el señor Jiménez. Tampoco ningún arresto previo.
Ms. Bostic?
No prior arrest, Judge.
All right. Yes, Ms. Lucia, you may go ahead and summarize that portion.
Ok, entonces de lo que estaban hablando es porque la fiscalía está pidiendo que se separen, que no puedan vivir juntos. Entonces los dos abogados estaban alegando y abogando para que puedan quedarse juntos, diciendo que dependen uno de los otros para pagar la renta, que esto era una situación que ocurrió una sola vez, por primera vez, y que no va a ocurrir otra vez, que estuvieron tomando y por eso empezaron a pelearse, lo cual no debería ocurrir nuevamente. Entonces la juez está ahorita midiendo si es que ella les va a dejar volver a que vivan juntos o no.
Thank you. For Mr. Flores Carrillo and Mr. Mendoza Jimenez, they are both accused of battery domestic violence. Battery family violence. And Mr. Mendoza Jimenez case is 23 CR 0007258.
Entonces, estos dos casos que estamos viendo ahora, tanto el señor Marco Antonio Flores Carrillo está siendo acusado por violencia y violencia familiar, y también el otro caso que es del señor Luis Mendoza Jiménez, que también tiene las mismas acusaciones de violencia y violencia familiar. El caso de él es el 23 CR 000725A.
Ms. Goodry, basically just summarize what's the bond recommendation for Mr. Jimenez.
Yes, Your Honor, it was no further contact for Mr. Jimenez with Marco. 1-day anger awareness, alcohol drug evaluation and our treatment, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and I believe I asked for a $2,000 surety bond.
Go ahead, Ms. Lucia.
La recomendación de la fiscalía para el señor Jiménez también es que no haya contacto entre ustedes, una clase de un día para manejo de la ira, no alcohol, no drogas mientras están en fianza y no contacto directo.
Mr. Flores Carrillo and Mr. Jimenez will each get a $3,500 signature bond through pretrial.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Tanto, entonces lo que la jueza está dictando es lo siguiente. And Your Honor, just to clarify for the interpreter, did you say 3,500?
3,500 signature bond through pretrial.
For each.
Yes.
Okay, entonces lo que la jueza está dictando es que cada uno de ustedes va a recibir una fianza de $3,500 cada uno. No la tienen que pagar en este momento, es solamente con la firma y es por medio de la oficina de prejuicio, o sea, antes del juicio del Estado. Eso tienen que coordinar con ellos.
They are to have no further violent contact with each other and with any other occupant of their apartment or home.
No pueden tener ningún contacto violento entre ustedes ni con ningún ocupante de la casa.
That means no physical fights and no verbal arguments.
Eso quiere decir no golpes físicos, no peleas físicas y no peleas verbales, tampoco ni alzando la voz.
They are both not to consume. They cannot consume alcohol, no illegal drugs, and they cannot own or possess any weapons or firearms.
No pueden, no tienen permiso, no pueden consumir nada de alcohol, nada de drogas ilegales y no pueden tener armas.
They're both to report to pretrial once a month and be subject to random screens for alcohol and or illegal drugs.
Van a tener que presentarse una vez al mes a esta oficina que les dije, en inglés es pretrial, que es antes de un juicio, y están sujetos a que se les hagan pruebas de drogas y de alcohol sin ser notificados.
Within 60 days of being released, they must both submit to an alcohol and drug evaluation and submit themselves to any treatment if required at their expense.
En los próximos 60 días tienen que sujetarse ustedes a pruebas de alcohol y también a cualquier tratamiento que necesiten tener por alcoholismo, todo con gasto suyo, pagándolo ustedes.
And within 60 days of being released, they must both attend and complete 6 classes of 6 anger management classes.
Y durante los...
Go ahead, Ms. Lucia.
Y también tienen que los dos ir a 6 clases cada uno para aprender a controlar la ira.
Failure to complete the evaluation, and the classes will result in a revocation of their signature bond.
El que ustedes no se hagan hacer la evaluación y no asistan a las clases, eso va a causar que se les quite la fianza, se les niegue la fianza y vuelven a donde están.
Yes, Ms. McLeod?
Yes, I was wondering if that was 6 hours or 6 classes. I was a little
6
confused.
classes, 1 hour each, so that's 6 hours.
Your Honor, based on my client's limited.
Let him translate that part.
Las clases son, cada clase es de 1 hora, entonces cada uno de ustedes tiene que asistir a 6 horas.
All right, Mr. Coleman?
Yeah, based on my client's limited resources and the cost of these classes, I'm sure it's the same for Mr. Jimenez as well. May that be just the 1-day anger awareness?
No.
Sus abogados pidieron que basándose en el costo de la clase y lo que ustedes ganan, si es que puede ser nada más un día de clase, y la juez dictó que no, que tienen que ir a las 6 horas de clases.
If they violate any of the conditions of their bonds, their signature bond will be revoked and they will be back in jail on a surety bond.
Si es que ustedes no hacen lo que la juez le dice y violan o se niegan a hacer alguna de las cosas que ella está dictando el día de hoy, su fianza será negada y volverán a la cárcel y no podrán salir nuevamente sin pagar una fianza. Ahora están saliendo sin pagar la fianza, nada más con su firma, pero tienen que completar todos los pasos que la juez les está diciendo.
Mr. Flores Carrillo, do you have any questions about your bond?
Señor Flores Carrillo, ¿tiene usted alguna pregunta sobre su bono de fianza? ¿Tiene usted alguna pregunta sobre su bono de fianza?
No? Okay. Mr. Jimenez, do you have a question?
Señor Jiménez, ¿tiene usted alguna pregunta sobre su bono de fianza?
I don't hear anything, so.
He's about to say something, Your Honor. He was just thinking.
Okay, he might have to sit down and say it just because of the audio.
No le escucho, entonces hable un poquito más alto.
Escuché que dijo que vamos a tener que pagar $2,500.
Will we have to pay the $30,500?
No, not today, but you have to comply with the conditions of the bond, including taking the 6 anger management classes and the alcohol and drug evaluation.
No, no tienen que pagar los $3,500 para salir. No tienen que pagar nada. Se les va a dejar salir nada más con su firma, pero tienen que completar todas las reglas de lo que la juez está dictando, incluyendo la evaluación de drogas y alcohol y las clases de 6 horas que tienen que tomar ustedes y tienen que pagarlas ustedes.
And you must both report to pretrial office every month.
Y los dos tienen que reportarse a la oficina, en inglés se llama pretrial, pero es la oficina de antes del juicio. Para cada mes tienen que reportarse, tienen que seguir todas las reglas.
And if you get arrested for anything else, your signature bond will be converted to a cash bond or a surety bond.
Y si es que terminan siendo arrestados por cualquier otra razón, esta fianza bajo firma se les será negada, volverán a la cárcel y tendrán que pagar fianza para salir. Ahí sí.
Any other questions?
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
No, todo bien.
All right.
No.
That concludes these cases.
Eso concluye estos
Thank you, Ana.
casos.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms.
So-
Lucia. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, my business before the court is concluded. May I be excused?
Yes, Ms. McLeod, you have a great weekend. Thank you. Stay
Judge.
warm.
Thank you, Ms. McLeod.
Next, we have position number 10, Mr.
All right.
Riggins.
Thank you. This is Javari Riggins, accused of theft of lost or mislaid property from February 3rd, 2023. Mr. Riggins, your case number is going to be 23 CR 000-726J. Your case has been formally accused. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Zach Finling. Any priors, Ms. Bostic?
But in regards to Mr. Riggins, he's not recommended. He has one prior arrest, which is an open case, 22 CP 206-064, firearm during and marijuana with the intent to distribute. Nothing further.
All right, thank you. Ms. Harmon?
Yes, Judge, and I did find a 2021 arrest that was on the dead docket, willful obstruction of law enforcement, theft by receiving stolen property, and that was 21 SC 177882, so another theft offense. Our recommendation in this case, because of the open case and the previous theft, is a $2,000 surety bond. No further contact with the victim, Malia Maxie, MELEAH, last name Maxie, MAXIE, to stay away from the incident of location of 266 4th Street Southwest, which is a Georgia Tech property, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. As you know, Judge, he was caught on camera removing Miss Maxie's wallet from the lost and found. He concealed it while he walked to the bathroom and threw it in the garbage because he, quote, chickened out, and they tried to locate the wallet in the trash. It was not there. We do think he is a risk of reoffending because of the history and a danger to the community, specifically the Georgia Tech community. So that's the basis of our recommendation. Nothing further.
All right, thank you. Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Riggins is 19 years old. He is a graduate of Grady High School. He does have community ties as he's born and raised in Atlanta, and all of his family is here as well. He does work for a company called Strategic Security. I'm doing security, and he does have one daughter that's 8 months, Judge. I would ask for a signature bond on Mr. Riggins' behalf, but if not inclined, Your Honor, then a $1,000 surety bond, Judge.
Bond is set at $1,000. It is a surety bond, and he's to stay away from all Georgia Tech property. And he's going to have to explain to his boss why he cannot return to be a security guard at Georgia Tech property. He's also to have no contact with Miss Malia Maxie. Next court date is going to be February 16th. If he makes bond, then he needs to make sure that he keeps his contact information current so that he can find out what's his next court date. Thank you.
Next, we have position number 11, Mr. Sinkfield.
Was that last case, was that Georgia State or Georgia Tech?
Georgia Tech,
Georgia Tech.
the entire, all Georgia Tech property, not just the Cloud building. Okay. Monquavius Sinkfield is case number 23 CR 000-729B. Mr. Sinkfield has been accused of battery, domestic violence from December 16, 2022. Do we have a, okay, that's all right. Mr. Monquavius Sinkfield, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Finling. Ms. Bostic, any priors with Mr. Sinkfield?
Judge, in regards to Mr. Sinkfield, does not qualify for prior arrest. He has, I guess, this companion case, 23 CR 000-309B, battery, family violence, cruelty, and the third. He has, he's on probation out of Hall County for obstruction since 11/21/22 for 12 months. Nothing further.
All right, thank you. Ms. Harmon?
Yes, Judge. In this case, we're going to recommend a $5,000 surety bond. No further contact with the victim in this case, Melody Collins, common spelling on both, to stay away from the incident location of 921 Westmoreland Circle, WESTMORLAND Circle, Northwest in Atlanta. The one-day anger awareness, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and a third-party transfer of the children. The companion case that Ms. Bostic mentioned, 23 CR 000-309B, is with the same victim, Ms. Melanie Collins. We did reach out to Ms. Collins this morning, and she did speak with our office and let us know that she wants a no contact and to stay away from her residence. And in the previous bond order, in the previous case, he was ordered to have no contact with her, to stay away, and a third party transfer of the child. So we think that it's appropriate to have those same conditions here. This warrant, the current warrant for this case, was taken out on January 23rd, 2023, after his court appearance on 1/17/2023. And Judge, as you know, they share a child. She was ending the relationship, and that's when the verbal altercation turned physical. He put his hands around her neck and left scratches on her neck. And like I said, Judge, just because of the history at the same parties, same type of violence, we're asking that for the $5,000 surety bond in this case. Nothing further.
So in the newer incident with Melody, he got a signature bond. And because of this arrest, I think that bond is going to be converted to a surety bond. And this particular case is from an incident prior to the open case.
Correct. This was a 12/16/22 incident.
All right. And I'm just I can't recall the date that warrant was issued. Was it an afterthought?
My notes say that the warrant for our case that's before you right now was taken out on January 23rd, 2023. He appeared on the 23 CR, the case in the B division, on January 17th, 2023. So it was about 6 days later. The warrant was taken out after he had his initial appearance.
For the January 16th incident.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm looking at the warrant issued by Judge Williams, Magistrate Court. That warrant was taken on January 26th, after he got released from the other open case.
Right.
All right, and I've watched the body camera. I'm trying to see why it was so late. Okay, understood. Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Singfield is 24 years old. He is a high school graduate and did attend technical school in order to attain his CDL. He is born and raised in Atlanta, and all of his family is here as well. So he does have community ties. As we've already talked about, he does have a child who is 4 years old, and he is currently employed. He works for the Howard Rec Center, where he works as a diesel mechanic. And I definitely understand the severity of his current situation. But I did obviously stress to him the importance of, from here on out, walking a straight line and abiding by his conditions. I am going to ask for a $1,000 surety bond, Judge, on Mr. Singfield's behalf.
All right. On this older but case from a newer warrant, the bond is going to be $2,000. It is a surety bond. Mr. Singfield, you need to pay attention very carefully, because if you don't comply with this bond, it's going to be difficult. So let me see. First of all, no further contact with Melody Collins. Listen very carefully. You're to stay 200 yards away from her. That's the length of 2 football fields. You cannot speak to her in person. You cannot speak to her through a third party. You cannot speak to her on a phone, through a computer, and you cannot discuss her on social media. You can't try to reach through her through Instagram or Twitter or any of these social media platforms. Nothing. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
The child that you share with Ms. Collins, are you both married, or have you all ever been married?
No.
All right. You are to have no contact with the child. No contact. Listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. If you are the father of the child, you can file a legitimation action in the appropriate superior court. If you've already done so, great. But if you haven't done so, you have to file a legitimation action in the appropriate superior court and get a court order to allow you to have contact in whatever way that superior court believes you should have contact.
Okay.
Of course, superior court will know that you have 2 active battery cases against the mother of the child.
Okay. Quick question. I already have, like last year, I already had joint custody and legitimation already.
You already have a court order in Superior Court?
Yes, from last year.
What was the year of that order?
I think it was in, I want to say 21 that I got joint custody.
All right. So in that case, this makes it easier then. No contact with the child at all until further order of the court.
Okay.
All right. If you want, you can go back to Superior Court and ask for your this order to be modified, and then you can tell the judge why I've ordered no contact with the child, because you have 2 open battery cases against the mother of the child. Understood?
Okay.
All right. Of course, if you're required to pay child support, that is still in place. You are still required to pay child support, whether you have to pay it through Cash App or you have to pay it through child support services.
Another question. So could I go now and go to her school and see her, since Melody not gonna be there at the school during lunchtime or something like that?
You cannot be within 200 yards of Miss Melody Collins.
No, I'm saying like when she's not there, like during the kids' lunchtime or something like that.
I don't understand the question.
Like I'm saying, Your Honor, like when Michaela at school, could I go to the school and see her?
No.
Okay.
No contact with the child until further order of the court. And that order can come from Superior Court, or that order can come from me or another judge in state court.
Okay.
But now that you have 2 open, active criminal cases involving battery, domestic violence, with regards to the mother of the child, I have great concern.
Okay.
Thank you. And so it's no contact with Melody Collins, no contact with any child any children that they share, no drugs, no alcohol, no weapons and no firearms. And his next court date is February 16th, 2023. And Mr. Jordan, we will place, well, actually, does he already have? No, he doesn't have a court date from the other case. So let's place both cases on February 16th. Ms. Bostic, since this was a signature bond through the jail. Ms. Bostic?
Yes, I'm listening.
Oh, since this was a signature bond through the jail, pretrial does not have anything to do with modifying that bond, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that still remains as a signature bond through the jail. All right, thank you.
Now, next we have position 12. He has 2 positions, 12 and position 13.
Yeah. Denzel, is it Denzel or I'm sorry, Quinzel Williams. All right. Mr. Williams does have 2 cases, 23 CR 000-730C, accused of battery, domestic violence from November 5th, 2022. And the second case is 23 CR 000-731C. And this is a traffic matter stemming from yesterday, February 3rd. Operating a vehicle with an expired or no license plate, driving while license suspended or revoked, and defective or no headlights. Mr. Williams, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Finley. Ms. Bostic, any priors?
But in regards to Mr. Williams, 5 prior arrests. Of those 5, 3 are for violence. He took a first offender on a theft by shoplifting and contributing to delinquency, and has a conviction for felony theft by shoplifting. And there's a simple battery family violence in 2018. That victim is a Tamisha Young.
All right, thank you. Ms. Harmon?
Yes, Judge, as it relates to the battery, and I'll just elaborate on the criminal offenses that I found. I also saw arrest for 2015 battery family violence, a 2016 arrest for battery out of Riverdale, the 2018 battery that Ms. Bostic referenced. There was an affray that was null pros in 2019. And Judge, we did have a suspended license out of Lovejoy in 2022. All those tell me a tale of a person who is violent. We are particularly concerned that he does have a previous simple battery family violence. He pled a no low to that. but he was charged with battery family violence in that incident that was null pros.
All right.
In the current case, we're going to recommend on the battery charge a $10,000 surety bond to stay away from the incident location of 1770 Richmond Circle Southeast in Atlanta. We're going to recommend no further contact with the victim in the current case, who is Tyronda. I'm sorry, I lost her name. I think it's last name. Judge, let me get back to that to double check that, but I remember the first name being Tyronda. A third party transfer of the child, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. On the driving case, there are bonds set in place. It's a total $1,250 surety bond on the driving. It's $150 surety on the headlights, $1,000 surety on the willful obstruction, and a $100 surety on the tag offense. The state will continue to recommend the current bonds on the driving, as we do think those are appropriate, as there is a limited history for driving offenses. Our main concern is the battery offense, because in that incident, judges, you know, he was just the victim was picking up her child from the babysitter, and when she opened the door to be attacked by the defendant, he was apparently upset because she wasn't answering the phone. There were visible bruises to her arm that other people could appreciate, and this happened in front of the child. Our understanding is that the victim may be on Zoom today, and her name is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just one second. Mr. Jordan, I'm sorry, you're not on mute.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Let me just find a sound up for her. Is Miss Tyrona Mack?
Yes, Tyronda Mack. Sorry about that.
Miss Mack, are you on the Zoom? All right, please resume, Ms. Harmer.
Okay. She indicated to our office that she did have injuries during this incident. And even though she wants contact with the defendant and wants him to return back home, that's not the state's recommendation, because his extremely violent history, the majority of his arrests are violent, which is concerning. So those are the bases of our recommendations in this case. Nothing further from the state.
All right. Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. Mr. Williams is 27 years old. He is originally from Atlanta, and all of his family is here, so he does have community ties, Judge. He is currently in the midst of attaining his GED, and he's receiving that from Cornerstone Christian Academy. He is a manager. He has two jobs. He's number one, a manager at Popeyes. Number two, he works for the city of Atlanta in their sanitation department. So he is, a very hardworking man. He is the provider, and that's why he has those two jobs to help provide for his kids. As previously stated, he does have one child with Miss Mack that is 1 year old. And I did speak with Miss Mack as well, and she did say that she did want to have contact with him and wanted him to return home, Judge. So I would ask for no further violent contact with Miss Mack, Judge, and would ask for a $2,000 surety bond on the battery family violence.
All right, thank you. On the battery family violence, the bond's going to be set at $4,000, and that's a surety bond. On the second case, operating a vehicle with no license plate, that's $500. Driving with a suspended license, that's $2,500. And defective or no headlights, that's $500. Total bond on that matter is going to be $3,500. His total bond is $7,500. That's going to be a surety bond on both cases. No contact with Miss Tyronda Mack. He may file a legitimation action with the Superior Court and get a court order to establish visitation and child support and so forth, and joint custody with regards to the child or children that he shares with Miss Mack. He shall not return to the Richmond Circle location. Within 30 days of bonding out, he needs to update the court with his new address. He may return to the location one time only to retrieve his personal belongings, and that visit must be in the company of a police officer. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, and no weapons or firearms. His next court date is going to be February 16th for both cases.
Perfect. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Next, Your Honor, we have position number one, Mr. Warren Anderson.
All right, and I'm so sorry, Mr. Jordan, also in the second position 13, no driving unless he has a valid driver's license, insurance and registration. Thank you. I'm sorry, Officer Norris, did you say
Position number 1,
one? Okay.
yes.
Is position number 3 present today? Hubert?
You want him to,
I have 3 and 4 still left. Hubert
yes,
and
both of them are still here.
Okay, thank you. Position number 1 is Warren Anderson, accused of battery, domestic violence from February 3rd, 2023. Mr. Anderson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Finling. Any priors, Ms. Bostic?
Yes, in regards to Mr. Anderson, 8 prior arrests. His violent offenses are old. In 99, there's a battery, and in 2000, there's a CWAC charge.
Okay. Is he on parole or any probation issues?
No, Judge, those are out of California.
All right, thank you. Ms. Goodry, we're not going to sound out any CWAC issues. So what's your bond recommendation for Mr. Anderson?
Yes, Your Honor, we're recommending a $6,000 surety bond. He stay away from 2930 Margaret Mitchell Court Northwest, that's in Atlanta. He's to have no contact whatsoever with Farron Cox. He's to do a 1-day anger awareness and have no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. Your Honor, I'm sure you are aware of the facts. We have spoken with the victim. She stated that she is very afraid of the defendant. This is not the first time that this has happened. This is the second time actually. There was a first incident 2 weeks ago. However, she didn't call the police. And as Your Honor is aware of the cycles of domestic violence. And in that first incident, she suffered a busted lip and he choked her. Your Honor, so she's finally called the police. She's made aware that these issues are serious. Due to this incident, she did have a swollen eye to which she had to seek medical attention. Her eye is still swollen shut, and she's currently unable to see out of that eye. She stated to us that she wants no contact whatsoever with him. She wants him to stay away from the residence, and she is planning to file a TPO very soon. She is on the Zoom, Your Honor. I believe I did see her name.
All right. I just see it. All right. Ms. Farron Cox, if you want to say anything, you would need to turn your video on, and I need to place you under oath. But you also have a right to not testify or say anything, so you can leave your video off. It's entirely up to you. Mr. Anderson is presently represented by Mr. Daryl Coleman. I'm sorry, I think I mentioned Mr. Finling. His attorney is Mr. Daryl Coleman. So, Mr. Coleman, what's your counter argument for bond?
Your Honor, I would be requesting signature bond on Mr. Anderson's behalf. It looks like his last arrest was over 20 years ago. He is 58 years of age. He just have an address here in Atlanta, Fulton County. He attended 3 years of college. He's currently employed doing real estate work. Again, based on the criminal history being some 20 years ago, I remind the court also that at this time that these are just allegations against Mr. Anderson, we would be requesting a signature bond.
Right. On the battery domestic violence, the bond is going to be set at $4,000. It is a surety bond. Next court date is February 16, 2023. No contact with Ms. Farron Cox. No illegal drugs, no weapons, and no alcohol. To stay away from 2930 Margaret Mitchell Court in Northwest Atlanta. If Mr. Anderson has items that he needs to retrieve, he can go back one time only with a police officer to retrieve his personal belongings. But after that, he's to stay away from that location. Within 30 days of being released, he must update the court with his current address, contact information, like phone number and email as well. Thank you.
Wait, Your Honor, I have one to
I noticed
clarify.
that, yeah. So
that was the incident location. I have her address.
okay, so if it's not, then you need to put down her address, put it in the chat
Okay,
to Mr. Jordan, and we'll put that in the bond order.
okay.
So, Mr. Anderson, no, I wish the warrant would say that was not where they live, but I don't believe the warrant said that.
It did not.
Okay, so, maybe it's got it on the. I'm sorry. All right. I have yeah, Mr. Jordan, do you see the address on Odyssey? Would Jones Avenue be the correct street?
No.
No, okay. Then if you have the current address, then Mr. Anderson has to stay away from that address
Okay. Oh,
with the one-time visit with an officer. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right. I think she,
She sent the message in the chat.
all right. Did you get it, Mr. Jordan?
I have it.
To him.
All right. If you can send it to Mr. Jordan too, that'd be great. Okay. All right. Moving on, we have, who's the next case? Is that Mr. Hubert or Mr. Humphreys?
It's gonna be Mr. Hubert.
All right.
Your Honor, can we do Mr. Hubert last so that we don't have to go into a breakout room?
We can.
Okay.
All right. Philip Humphreys. Mr. Humphreys is case 23 CR 0000722G, accused of misdemeanor possession of marijuana, misdemeanor possession of marijuana less than 1 ounce, misdemeanor possession and use of drug-related objects, and driving while in possession of an open alcohol container from February 3rd, 2023. Mr. Humphreys, you have a right to remain silent as advised, and your attorney is Mr. Coleman. And any prior traffic infractions, Ms. Bostic?
No, Judge, all his other arrests, I think, were for misdemeanor marijuana that were dismissed. The other took a PTI on misdemeanor marijuana.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Goodry, any objection to a signature bond?
Yes, Your Honor, I do have an objection. I do have his driving history here. He does have a few speeding tickets from 2018, and he has a failure to maintain lane from 2006. And I'm sure Your Honor is aware of the.
No, I don't. I'm aware of the charges. I'm just wondering whether he's got any prior or open DUIs or any prior convictions for open alcohol.
No, he doesn't, but we were concerned that he placed the community at risk by driving under the influence of alcohol, although he's not charged with driving under the influence. Based on the facts, the officer did smell the odor of alcohol coming from his breath and did find the alcohol within the car. So we would ask for a $2,600 surety, $600 on the possession of marijuana, $1,000 each on the possession and use of drug-related objects, and $1,000 on the possession of open alcohol container.
All right. On the possession of marijuana is $500. On the possession and use of drug-related objects, $500. The possession of an open alcohol container is $1,000. That's a signature bond through pretrial. Mr. Humphreys, you're going to be granted a signature bond through pretrial. You're not to consume any more alcohol until this case is resolved, and you're not to consume any illegal drugs. By the way, this marijuana is still illegal in the state of Georgia. So if you plan to smoke any weed, you might want to go to another state where it's legal. But here in Georgia, it's not. But unfortunately, you still can't smoke in any legal states because now you have a bond order that says you cannot smoke any weed. So you'll be reporting to pretrial. You'll be subject to random screens for illegal drugs and or alcohol. If you fail a screen, your bond will be revoked and converted to a surety or cash bond only. Your next court date will be sent to you in your Alpharetta address. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Give me 1 minute to get him out of the courtroom.
All right. Okay, Mr. Jordan, I guess we'll go into a breakout with courtroom 2, Ms. Goodry, Mr. Coleman, and myself, please.
And Ms. Wolf, Your Honor, ASG Wolf.
Okay, and Ms. Wolf. Ms. Bostic, any priors on Mr. Hubert?
In regards to Mr. Hubert, 12 prior arrests. Last arrest was 2014. He has a simple battery in 2012.
All right, thank you.
Who all needs to be in this breakout room?
Ms. Wolf, Ms. Goodry, Mr. Coleman, myself, and courtroom 2. All right, folks, just to go over the calendar, position number one, Anderson's a $4,000 surety, reset February 16th. Position two is 3,500 signature bond to pretrial with classes and an ADUT. Next court date, it will be further notice. Position three, 10,000 surety, reset to February 16th. Position four, Humphreys is a $2,000 signature bond through pretrial. Further notice. Position five, Jackson's a 2,000 signature bond to pretrial, further notice. Six is a 4,500 signature bond through pretrial, further notice. Seven, Langford is a $4,000 signature bond through pretrial, further notice. Position eight, Mendoza Jimenez is a 3,500 signature bond to pretrial with anger management classes and alcohol and drug evaluation. Position nine is a $4,000 split bond, no driving, and unless you have a valid driver's license and registration and insurance. Position 10, Riggins is a $1,000 surety, stay away from all Georgia Tech property, reset February 16th. 11, Sinkfield is a 2,000 surety bond, reset February 16th. 12, Williams, and 13. It's a $4,000 surety bond on position 12 and 3,500 surety bond on position 13. Reset date February 16th. All right, I believe that concludes the calendar. Any questions about the bond?
Yes, Judge, I have one question on position not seven. I'm sorry. Position 9, I had it as 1,000 surety on no insurance, 1,000 surety on suspended, and a 4,000 signature on the remaining charges, which would be a $6,000 split. Is that correct?
500 is 1,000. It's 1,000 on no insurance, 1,000 on driving while license suspended.
Mhm.
Then the remaining charges are 500 each. So that should be a total of 2,000 surety and 2,000 signature bond pretrial.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? We good? All right, folks, you all enjoy the rest of the weekend. Mr.
Thank you.
Jordan, I look forward to my homework. Thank you. All right. Take care.
Thank you.